Alrighty, everybody, it is currently Saturday, August 23rd, 2025, and I'm coming at you live from a social media comment section. All right, that was the most annoying place I could think of, right? I thought of a few. I was like, a liberal arts college classroom, but like, I've been in those before, and yeah, it's annoying to be there, but it's not that annoying. And I was like, maybe like a church or something, but I was like, even that's not really that. And I've never been to like whatever Muslim church is called or whatever Jewish church is called. I've never been to either of those, but like even it at its most annoying, I feel like a church or religious setting like that isn't that bad. Even traffic, I was like, I can like listen to music when I'm in traffic, but I was like a social media comment section. That is the most annoying place. I don't think there's like the physical manifestation of like a social media comment section should only be reserved for like torturing the worst people on earth. That's that's what I imagine Guantanamo Bay is like. At least for me personally, is just like somehow they distilled the feeling I get when I look at a social media comment section and it are just injecting it straight into my blood. That's what I imagine Guantanamo Bay to be like, because I've talked about this before, and that's the theme of this episode today is annoying things. So I'm going to be talking about it a whole lot. There's nothing worse than being annoying. There's no worse feeling personally than being like, well, there is some worse feelings, but I mean, like in day-to-day life, just like an average day. No one's dying, no one's getting, beat up or whatever, just like an average day. The worst feeling I'll feel all day is being annoyed or annoying someone else. Like that's the ultimate thing that I hate more than anything else in this world. That's like a day-to-day interaction, right? I'll stub my toe every single day of the week, dude. I got some powerful toes. I got some absolute chimp toes on me. All right. I'll stub the shit out of my toe, but like the feeling of being annoying or the feeling of being annoyed are unparalleled in terms of either shame or anger, right? When you're annoying someone, for me, I feel a fair bit of shame, right? I'd rather say something dumb than say something annoying. And I think, I don't know, I do record 2 hour podcasts sometimes, and I feel like that's pretty fucking annoying. I do feel like that's a pretty fucking annoying thing to do, but I'd rather sound dumb. And that's what most of this podcast is, right? I'd rather sound dumb than sound annoying. And that to me, when I feel like I'm being annoying, I'm like, oh fuck, shit. Like I feel bad. And when I'm being annoyed, I'm just filled with ire, just rage on a level you cannot imagine. I have no tolerance for it, right? It's like with little kids, I can put up with it. Same with dogs. But when a grown adult is annoying me, nothing makes me more angry. Nothing, nothing. I'd rather have a guy just shouting a litany of slurs at my face, just completely dismantling me as a human being, just like insult after insult after insult, as opposed to just having to like sit behind a guy who like doesn't know how to make a left turn, right? Like you know what I'm talking about. Like someone who doesn't like kind of cheat the light a little bit or doesn't turn when it's yellow. It's like, dude, this everyone knows that this left turn signal only lasts for like 2 seconds. You're gonna have to fucking turn when it's yellow. All right, so just turn when the goddamn light is fucking yellow. Turn when it's red. Sometimes I turn when it's red. Borderline, like I know when I'm in that intersection it's gonna turn red, but I know I'm gonna be safe. Like I'll do that, dude. But just some people, it's so annoying and it fills me with so much rage, dude. I'm like in my car because I drive I would call it a maybe not a shit box, but a rust box for sure. I mean, this thing is just straight rust, dude. We got just everything. Even the plastic is rusty somehow. There's a lot of rust on my car. It's an old car, but I still like when I see someone who drives like a 2025 or any car that's like even slightly newer than mine, and I see that person driving worse than me in how old is my car now? My car's like 17 years old. Right? My car could have sex with Matt Gates. That's how old my car is, which that's not a high bar. You don't have to be particularly old for Matt Gates to be attracted to you. But still, dude, my car will be able to vote in the next election. Whatever the next election is, my car will be able to vote in it. So when I see someone in a newer car driving worse than me, I'm literally like two hand, like a gorilla trying to bang out of the glass, you know? You ever seen those videos where like an animal goes insane in the zoo and it just starts like attacking the fucking, its cage that it's been locked in for its entire life? That's what I start doing to my car. I'm just like banging it, just like, like that video of the chimp who like grabs the bars of his cage and is just like, that's what I do, dude. It makes me the most mad. The most mad you can imagine a person being. I get madder than that when I'm annoyed about anything, dude. That's what and once again, I hate itching. Just having the feeling of having an itch is by far the worst feeling to me. Like that's the thing that gets me. A lot of people like sadness gets to them or like, being angry or whatever. And like, I mean, yeah, that stuff gets to me. I'm not like Buddha or whatever. I don't have like perfect emotional regulation, but I mean, just nothing gets to me like being annoyed by another grown adult. Like I said, I can take it from like little kids and like animals and stuff, right? Because those are retarded people, basically. Those are people who do not know any better. But you are an adult man, and just so much anger. Just literally, my body temperature raises like at least 5 degrees when someone is not like going on a yellow light, on a short traffic light, you know what I mean? Like some of those things are like 5 seconds long, and it's like, man, you're gonna have to go on yellow. Literally, this traffic light is so short, you could be the first person in line and go immediately when it turns green, and you'll still be going when it's yellow. You know what I mean? Like you'll still be in the intersection when it's yellow. That's how short this light is. So how about you go when it's fucking yellow, right? Everyone knows that it's not like instantaneous from one light turning red and then the other light turns green. It's like you got 2 seconds, dude. You got an extra 2 seconds on there, right? So how about you take those 2 seconds and take advantage of it? Man, we live in a fast-paced world, all right? We live in a fast-paced world. You need those 2 seconds. And it just like I could be going nowhere. I could literally just like be driving for fun, which I don't do, but like I could, right? Even if I was driving for no purpose, literally no reason, that would still annoy me to no end, you know? Same with people who like don't get it going in the grocery store. And I've been that guy from time to time, so I understand it, but like it's still like you're looking around for everything. Move your cart to the side. All right. I'm trying to get to the fucking refried beans too. All right. You're parked up in front of the refried beans. I'm getting in your personal space. Clearly, I am also trying to get access to the refried beans, and you refuse to move. This episode is just gonna be me screaming, just running headfirst into a wall, just losing my mind, just thinking about how I can't get my grubby little paws on those refried beans at the grocery store because fucking Tweedledee and Tweedledum over here don't see me crowding in on them, dude. It's an NBA game. You know what I mean? I'm Dennis Rodman boxing you out trying to get the rebound. Except I'm not trying to get a rebound. I'm trying to get, an everything bagel. I'm trying to get the Dave's. You guys know what I'm talking about. I think it's Dave's. Is that the brand? You guys know the everything bagel. I'm trying to get my hands on the Thomas everything bagel, and you're sitting there just boxing me out. It's incredible. It just makes me so mad. I'm trying to get at the goddamn Granny Smith apples right now. The onions are over there. Somehow you're grabbing onions right now and also blocking the Granny Smith apples. Like that's the thing that like for me personally would get me involved in like a war or a revolution of some kind, right? As if I was like inconvenienced, right? Like that's the thing that like makes me angry about oppression. It's not like taking away my rights or whatever. I don't even know my rights, right? Most Americans do not know our rights. You ask people what it says in the Constitution. They have no idea. People get the Declaration and the Constitution confused constantly. No one here knows their rights. But like we know how we should be living. And when you impede on that, you don't make people angry, you make them annoyed, which is infinitely worse because annoyance just cuts so deep. Like anger is like just like a base level human emotion. But annoyance is like it's in like your brain, dude. It's like in the middle of your brain. You're not getting the fucking annoyance out of there. Right? So like that's if you know the Palantir AI spying stuff prevents me from doing what I want to do, I will start a revolution. Not because I think it's right or whatever, but just because it annoys me. That's what would make me start it. I would just be like gritting my teeth, just like Jesus fucking Christ. Like that's the emotion, or like that's the emotional response that would cause me to like get involved in some sort of like revolutionary armed movement, is just having to be like, Jesus Christ, the fucking AI drones are kidnapping people and it's making the goddamn line at the grocery store longer than it fucking should be. That's that's what would that's what would make me pick up arms and fight against, the oppression or whatever, fight against the fascists, right? Like if the fascists were like making shit run smooth, hey, Heil Hitler. You know what I mean? Or whatever fascists say, you know? But if the fascism was like if the fascism made me not be able to take a right turn at a stop sign, immediately Boston Tea Party 2.0. I'm throwing all that shit in the ocean, you know? Like that's what would really get me going. That's what would really get me angry. All it takes is like 3 extra seconds at a stop sign, and I'm like, something needs to be done about this country. Like that's what it'll take. Or like someone not using their turn signal when they clearly should be using their turn signal. That'll like activate like the revolutionary spirit that exists inside of me. And I don't maybe that's true of all Americans. I think it's true of all Americans, right? Like if North Korea hacked like the banking system in America or whatever, like not the banking system, but like the surveillance system, right? If they hacked that shit, I do not think that would invigorate Americans enough to want to go to war with China. But if they hacked like the McDonald's rewards app, just like not being able to get like that $5 Big Mac or whatever, that's what would cause Americans to be like, we need to march on Beijing by tomorrow. You know? Just like minor inconveniences like that. Or if like they took away your favorite, or if they took away like Baja Blast, right? Just being like, I can't get my goddamn Baja Blast, dude. China took away the Baja Blast. That was the only reason I wanted to go to Taco Bell. And then I drive all the way to Taco Bell, and then I figure out they don't have the Baja Blast there. Beijing will be captured within a week, right? Like that's it's a simple matter of fact. I think about Americans is that annoyance is like more of an issue to us than oppression. We could take a fair bit of oppression, dude. Like Americans, most Americans, especially white Americans, really just all of us as a whole, we have that, just most people really on the planet have just been oppressed for so long by like these big power structures that like oppression doesn't really like get to us like that, right? Like if you look at it historically, most groups globally have been oppressed, right? Like in Europe, it was like the kings were oppressing the peasants. That's kind of why America really got going in the first place. Africa, you had slavery, and they also had kings that oppressed the peasants, shit like that. So oppression it doesn't really bother us as much as I think people think it does, right? It bothers us a bit, but it just doesn't get to us like that. But annoyance, I just feel like annoyance is just so deep-seated, right? I feel like that's what caused the French Revolution. Like the famous quote from the French Revolution is Marie Antoinette being like, let them eat cake, which is people misconstrue that quote because when Marie Antoinette said, let them eat cake, she was talking about like when you bake bread, there's like these burnt parts that like stay on the bread pan that you cook the bread in. And that's what cake meant. So she was like, fucking let him eat the scraps, right? And like, I'm sure that made a lot of people angry, but that would just make me more like annoyed, you know? It would like annoy me. And I'd be like, let's get out the fucking guillotine, dude. It's time. Call me Dustin Poirier because I'm whipping out the guillotine and it's time to cut off some goddamn heads. Like, that's what would get me going in the French Revolution. Like, none of the other shit. It's like, the king's oppressing us. Yeah, he's been doing that for about 1,000 fucking years now. Like, I don't really give a shit. But Marie Antoinette being like, fuck him, let him eat the burnt part of the bread. I'd be like, you goddamn bitch. Like every argument you've ever had with a woman would start like flowing back into your brain at that moment, and you'd be like, "You fucking bitch, I fucking hate you so much," right? And you'd be like, "It's time to chop off that lady's head." She's not even French. She's Austrian, dude. I'm about to take her out of the game, telling me I can't eat what I want to eat. I can't eat a goddamn baguette. You're getting your head taken off, Marie Antoinette. So I just feel like annoyance is just it's such a powerful emotion. At least to me personally. I don't know. Maybe some other people can chime in on that, but to me, just nothing gets me more like invigorated than just like general annoyance, right? Like despair. Despair doesn't really get to me. Like I don't especially for like people in Gen Z, I think despair is just like it's a natural state for us almost, right? Where it's like just for our entire lives, we've kind of or for our entire like adult lives for sure and most of our like conscious lives, you know what I mean, since we've been like 5 or 6 years old, it's been, I was 4 when the mortgage crisis happened. Like that was my introduction to like consciousness as a human being was the entire economy just like collapsing in on itself and then no one getting in trouble for it, right? Like that was my introduction to being a human being with like a somewhat working brain on this planet. And so I feel like despair for us, it's just like, I mean, yeah, that's Tuesday. Like, what are you, what are you talking about here? We live in the despair, dude. And I get it. People are gonna be like, well, there's people with worse situations in worse countries, and it's like, yeah, man, but like, this is America, all right? America's not South Sudan or whatever. So I don't think like despair gets to me, just because I've been living in it for so long, but something about annoyance. I've been annoyed for most of my life about most things that I've encountered, right? Most things have annoyed me, but still, the annoyance cuts just as deep as it does every other time, right? Like I could be annoyed every single day for a year, and I would be just as angry from the first day to the 365th day. You know what I mean? Whereas like with sadness, it, it- I just would be like, fuck it, whatever. I'm sad. But like annoyance just it cuts so goddamn deep. It just gets me so much worse than any other emotion. So it's just like it's shit like that I think would cause me to be like, all right, it's time to start a fucking militia and fight back because I can't keep being annoyed like this, dude. I can't keep going on like this. Like that's what motivates most of my decisions in life. It's like, how can I be the least annoyed as humanly possible? That's why I don't drive on the highway like that. Like, yeah, part of it is I drive like a kind of a shitty car that like doesn't allow me to drive on the highway that much, but like the other part of it is I'm just not trying to deal with all that, man. Like all the bullshit that goes on the highway. People just forget how to drive when they're on the highway for the most part. They're just like, all right, I'm going 100 and not using a turn signal. Whereas like if you put them in more of like a back roads or like a suburban setting, like they'll drive more normally. But like that's why I don't drive on the highway that much. It's like it's just I know it's gonna annoy me to no end, and I'd rather just not be annoyed like that, right? I'd rather it take 10 extra minutes than it take 10 less minutes, but the entire drive is just filled with me being like, God, get out of God, what are you doing? Right? There's like semi trucks taking up both lanes on the highway, not letting me pass them even if it's quicker, it's longer, right? Just because you're angry the entire time, right? You're just so filled with like negative emotion that it literally makes the drive feel longer. So, yeah, annoyance is the most powerful emotion, in my opinion. Things don't change when people are like angry or sad. Things change when you're just like done with it. You're just like, I'm done with this shit, right? Sorry, I burped my ass off over here. God damn, dude. What did I eat for lunch? I ate fish. I ate fish for lunch. So You should probably be glad that microphones aren't able to transmit smell right now because I ate fish tartar sauce with jalapenos on it for lunch. So these are some vicious ass burps. I did brush my teeth. I do brush my teeth after lunch. I don't brush my teeth in the morning, and I never got that. I never got brushing your teeth in the morning. It's like, dude, I just brushed my teeth before I went to bed, and last time I checked, I don't eat hot Cheetos in my sleep. So my breath is it's fine, dude. But I mean, yeah, like that's just what motivates me. Annoyance motivates me more than anything else. You know what I mean? The lifestyle I want to live is just how can I be as least annoyed as possible, right? Like if I ever want kids, I'm probably not going to have a wife, right? Because like I said, kids just them being annoying, yeah, it like tires me. And also to be fair, I've never like lived with children, right? I've never had to wake up at like 3 in the morning to fucking give a kid a bottle or whatever. Like that's I've never had to experience that. So maybe that's why they don't annoy me as much. But like, yeah, I can deal with all the other shit. I can't deal with like the annoyance of it all. So yeah, we're ranking the most annoying types of people, not really groups of people, but like types of people, right? And so I got my list right here. This is going to be a top 10 ranking. So my personal list that I came up with this completely on my own because I was gonna like Google it to see what like the consensus beliefs were, but I feel like it would just be such like annoying, politically correct bullshit of people, not being able to be like, no, I hate Muslims or whatever. Muslims aren't on the list, but like if that's what annoys you, be honest about it. So this is my honest list of the top 10 most annoying types of people on earth. We got non-denominational Christians, sovereign citizens, animal rights people, Zionists, Blue Lives Matter people, people from the Northeast, chefs, performative men, both types, dude. I'm gonna break that down heavy because this is something I've been feeling like for a long way or for a long time, and I don't think a lot of other people are on this wave yet. But performative men, both types, stoners and communists. And I feel like we got a decent balance of things that people think are more like left-wing things and then things that people think are more like right-wing things, right? The performative men, I'd say that like splits the line. Like I'm 50% of the performative men that I'm talking about are like the left-wing, like Claro listening bullshit motherfuckers, and then the other ones are like the barstool, I love drinking and gambling types of dudes. So that one splits the difference. Then we got like Blue Lives Matter people. That's like a pretty right-wing group. Zionists, I feel like for the most part, like the people that defend Zionism do tend to be more right-wing. And then for like the left-wing types, we get animal rights people and what was the other one? Communists, I guess, but like I don't know. Communism to me, people are like, communism is liberal brainwashing bullshit. And it's like, is it though, dude? Because you look at like the history of all like these communist countries, like the USSR and China and fucking like any other one that you can think of. These aren't like tolerant groups of people, right? They're not like liberal or progressive. They're they just want like big government, which I guess is like more of a left-wing thing than it is a right-wing thing, but I wouldn't categorize like communism as being liberal in nature. I don't think it is. They're very conservative, right? Like China's one of the most conservative places on earth. They don't play that gay shit. They don't like they're not, sexually free or whatever. There's no drugs, you can't if you're like a fentanyl addict in China, you're getting thrown in a fucking furnace. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like China, I've talked about the pit before, and the pit is just big old pit somewhere, like a literal pit where you just throw people. And like I feel like China has that. I feel I feel like somewhere out in like the western like frozen tundra of China, there is a pit somewhere where they just throw people. But like they're not it's not liberal. I wouldn't describe it as liberal as at all. Like I know every communist in America like is a liberal person, but it's like it's not a liberal ideology. Like if you really think about what it would take to have like a functioning communist society, it's actually pretty close. You know what I mean? It's conservative. It doesn't allow for like new ideas and stuff like that, right? Like in order to have a communist system of government and economics, you kind of have to have everyone on the same page about shit, right? And that's kind of like it's antithetical to like the true meaning of liberalism, right? Like obviously liberals in America are just as close-minded as conservatives in America, but like by the definition of what it means to be liberal, uh communism doesn't allow for stuff like that. And so I feel like for me, people will be like, it's fucking left-wing liberal bullshit. And it's like, it's not liberal. Maybe left-wing. I don't really know like the definition of that or whatever. But people also call Nazis right-wing, and like Nazis were nationalist socialists or fascists, if you want to call them that. But like fascism, that's also like a big governmental ideology, right? It's like in order for a fascist nation to be a fascist nation, you have to have like a big government. And that's not like a conservative idea to have, but they still call it right wing. So I have no fucking idea how any of that shit works. And to be fully honest, I don't think the people who talk about it really know either. I feel like they're just like kind of making shit up as they go along. So I don't feel too bad about not knowing why communism is left wing, but fascism isn't. I feel like they'd both be left wing, right? Because they're both, big government ideologies. So I don't really understand how that works. So, but I would say communism, most people in America at least do tend to associate it with more left liberal progressive ideology. But once again, it's really not. Like you look at just the history of all, communist nations ever, they do not allow for new ideas, right? Like that's what the gulags were. The gulags were like, if you were like, yeah, I don't want to eat potatoes and I don't want to eat fucking potatoes and cabbage every day. Stalin was like, oh, you don't want to do that? Have fun in a frozen wasteland, dumbass. And he just threw your ass in the in the gulag, right? Which is that's not progressive or liberal at all. You're not allowing for new ideas to like get into society. And it does make sense, right? You can't if you're a communist government, you can't have people like questioning you and shit like that. You just got to be like, no, what we're doing is 100% right. Because if it's not, then you have to do like a whole overall or overhaul of your entire system. So yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I get it. I get that it's left wing in the sense that it's big government, but I don't think it's liberal or progressive at all. Which, yeah. And the liberal people in America aren't really liberal or progressive at all. Like if like liberalism is literally accepting every ideology, right? Like it's it's kind of what it is by definition is always being open to like new ideas and shit like that. But if you went up to a liberal person and you tried to introduce them to like a what they would view as like a conservative idea, they would shut that shit down immediately. So they're not really liberals. And a lot of the right wing people in this country aren't really right wing, you know? Like Donald Trump, people are like, Donald Trump's a right wing conservative. No, he's not. Donald Trump is not conservative in any fucking sense of the word. Donald Trump literally came in and started giving like billions to fucking Palantir and shit like that. That's not what a real conservative would do, you know? We got our wires crossed somewhere in this country where everyone's just kind of the same, but no one seems to want to accept that fact. No one wants to seem to, and it's not me being like, oh, both sides are equally bad or whatever. It's just like you're calling yourself a thing, but you're not actually that thing, right? It's like if I was like, yeah, it's like those messianistic Jews. I think that's what the term is. They're like Jews, but they also believe that Jesus is the fucking savior of the world, right? Or like he's the son of God. And it's just like, guys, then you're not a Jew, you're a Christian. Right? Like, let me see if I could find this real quick. But and I remember when I heard about it for the first time because there was this church kind of in our neighborhood, that was a messianistic synagogue, and it was like I was like, Mom, those are just Catholics who want to call themselves Jews. I was very confused by this. So yeah, messianic, not messianistic, messianic Judaism is a movement of people who identify as Jewish and believe Yeshua, Jesus, is the Jewish Messiah, combining Jewish cultural heritage and practices with Christian theology. It's like, guys, you're just Christians who dress weird. You're just Christians who still wear the little hat. I don't get it. You're just Christians who are really good at banking, right? Like, I don't understand how they're like, I'm Jewish, but I believe that Jesus is the Messiah. And it's like, you're so fucking close. It's just these people. Right? And I just feel like that's kind of reflected in a lot of like political ideology in America where they're like, I'm conservative, but I also think that we should give government contracts of trillions of dollars to, meta AI data centers. It's like then you're not conservative. If you think the government should be giving companies money, then you're not a conservative, right? At least on like that level, where the government's giving, these companies hundreds of billions of fucking dollars. It's like then you're not conservative. If you think the government should be spending that much money on like private companies, you're not conservative. You're actually like kind of communist with a couple extra steps in there, right? And if you're like a liberal who thinks that like everyone should have the right to do whatever they want and that the government should kind of like stay out of everyone's business, then you're not really like or then you're not really like a left wing, right? It's odd. It's very odd. I think we're very confused by that. We've changed the definitions of words over time. And I read 1984. All right, I read 1984. I didn't read the whole thing. Honestly, the funniest thing about me reading 1984 is I read so in the book 1984, if you've never read it before, this guy Wilson meets up with these people who are like supposed to be this underground group who is fighting against Big Brother, the big socialist oppressive government that's in the country of Oceania, right? And so he meets up with these people, and one of the dudes that's in the group, and I'm not going to spoil the book, but one of the dudes that's in the groups gives Wilson like this pamphlet, right? And like that. And in the book, they like have the entire pamphlet laid out, and the pamphlet's about like how like this big government operates and how we need to like fight back against it and all that shit. And that was like the one part of the book that I actually read. It was like this book within a book almost. I did read 1984, and I also did listen to all the oral presentations episodes about 1984. So I know what's going on there. Dude, I know when you change the definition of words, that's 1984. Alright. So I bet you get off my fucking ass. And I feel like that's what's going on in this country. We've like changed the definition of these words so much where it's like the liberals are like conservative and then the conservatives are like left wing. It's weird, man. It's fucking weird. Like if you've ever heard the term, I'm socially liberal but fiscally conservative, which that's another very annoying type of person. But I feel like modern Republicans, right? Not conservative people, but like modern Republicans, they're like the inverse of that, where they're like socially conservative but fiscally liberal. It's also what Hitler was. And that's also what like every communist nation was, right? Like I said, the USSR, they were collecting, all the money and like all the work that the people did, but then they were very socially conservative, right? Same with China. China's, like I said, very socially conservative, but they're fiscally very liberal. So, yeah. Somewhere along the way, we got our wires crossed. Okay. Somewhere along the way, we got our wires crossed. And we just fucked up the definition of like every word when it comes to politics. And that does make sense because our entire political system is pretty fucked up. And it's been like that for a while. So I don't think it's a surprise that like since the political system got fucked up, the definition of the words surrounding the political system have also gotten, I mean, pretty fucked up. Right? It's like it's insane to call yourself a conservative and then also be like, we need to start an AI database of everyone that lives in this country. Those two things don't match up, right? It's insane to call yourself a liberal and then immediately attack anyone that like introduces a new idea to you or like challenges one of your ideas. It's just odd. It's an odd thing to do. It doesn't line up with your personal definition of what you are. So those are also very annoying kinds of people, but I didn't want to get into that. I didn't want to get into the whole just, being, owning the libs or owning the fucking conservatives or whatever, which that's still a pretty big trend, dude. Owning the other political side, that's still a pretty big trend that's going on, and it's going on with the right wing and the left wing. They're still They're still like they're still sending dudes that are like Ben Shapiro or whatever. That's all Hassan Piker is. Hassan Piker is just like the communist Ben Shapiro, where it's like this is a guy that never really had to work for anything. His uncle was just incredibly rich. I'm talking about Hassan Piker and Ben Shapiro here. I'm just kind of assuming with Ben Shapiro. I don't really know. But it's just like this guy that never really had to work for anything and just spends all day not even studying the political ideology. Because I think if they did, I think if Ben Shapiro and Hassan Piker spent all day actually studying the political ideologies that they subscribe to, they would be far more tolerable. They'd be far more just like normal human beings, right? Because they'd understand that the political ideology that they subscribe to, maybe they'd still think it's the correct political ideology, but they would like see the flaws in it and they wouldn't look at it as like this absolutely perfect, monolith or whatever. And so that, yeah, they're very similar. And they just like go to college campuses and just anyone who disagrees with them, they're like, take away the fucking mic from that guy. Like that's all they do. They just wait for like a retarded person to come up and be like, actually, I hate communism or I hate Trump or whatever. And then they're like, actually, and it's the exact same. I feel like you could put like side by side a video of Hassan Piker and a video of Ben Shapiro, and it would basically be the exact same thing, right? Like the tone, the way they control the argument and all that shit. They're very similar people, dude. People are still out here trying to own the libs and own the conservatives and stuff like that. Like, and there's like compilations of it still on YouTube. MLG Ben Shapiro compilation owning libs. And then Hassan Piker's coming up. They're just completely insufferable people. That's another type of person, just like overly political. And they also just don't understand like their own political ideology. Just dumbasses. That's what it is at the end of the day. It's just annoying fucking dumbasses. They're the exact same type of person. They're the exact same. They're just annoying dumbasses who just won the lottery when it comes to having like rich relatives and like stumbling into this career of just being a retarded person. just just stumbling into a career of being a dumbass. Just being a dumbass. And I also in this list I didn't include overly political people and I didn't include boomers either just because I feel like there's this big divide between the different types of boomers that I've noticed as of late, especially as I've spent more time with my grandpa, because my grandpa's a boomer, but he doesn't fit the boomer mold, right? Like he's very giving with his money when it comes to like his kids and especially his grandkids and his great grandkids. He's very giving with his money. He's not like self-righteous at all. He's not like hoarding his wealth or whatever. He's very nice, like understanding guy. He's very like I said, very generous with his money. And I was like, but he's a boomer, right? Like I know I've seen this. I see the boomers around me, right? Like you go to the grocery store and you can just observe the behavior of the boomers, right? And you're like, why is my grandpa so different from that? Right? And like other boomers that I've met before, like why is like this group of boomers, why are like some of the boomers I've met so just like normal and nice and all that shit. And then like the other group is like the biggest fucking assholes on earth. And I think I discovered it. I think I discovered like the divide that exists between boomers. And it's like farm boomers and then city boomers or like city/suburb boomers, right? Where it's like my grandpa's a farm boomer. You know what I mean? He grew up on a farm. He grew up literally like he was living in like the fucking 1800s. You know what I mean? He grew up on like a hog farm listening to the radio all day. And he had like eight siblings, I think, and he had to share a bath once a week with all of them. Like that's he grew he grew up in like a little house on the prairie. And I was just like, I think that's the divide. I think that's the divide between different types of boomers is that one grew up in like the suburbs, right? Like their parents fought in World War II and they came back and they got like the GI Bill and they bought a house in, Levittown, Long Island, or like whatever the new suburbs were at the time, right? And then the other part of the boomers is like people who maybe their dad fought in the war, but like maybe not, and they just like grew up on a farm, right? Like in the exact same conditions that their parents grew up with. And I just so it's almost like one type of boomer is more like the greatest generation, and then the other type of boomer is more of like what you think of when you think of a classical boomer. Like one type of boomer grew up like their parents grew up, right? The greatest generation, they call them the greatest generation for a reason. They won World War II. They created the one of the greatest economies that's ever existed on the face of the planet. They did all this good shit, right? Like part of the boomers grew up in that situation, and then the other part grew up with just surrounded by like this gaudy fucking nonsense, right? Like this suburban cookie cutter house, fucking perfect lawn, you know, just nonsense. Like everything's given to you. You never have to work for anything. And like that's the divide, right? Where like the farm boomers, they grew up in some old shithole fucking house. Like my grandpa grew up in fucking Missouri, dude. Like it's a pretty shitty state. Like even now, Missouri has like two of the highest murder rates in America in terms of like cities, right? And it's a pretty poor state, pretty drug addicted state. And even back then, even in like its prime, it was still a pretty shitty state. And he grew up in Missouri, living in like a fucking farmhouse on a hog farm, working since the time he was a little kid. He grew up like his parents grew up. Whereas I feel like a lot of these boomers, they're pretty disconnected from the greatest generation. You know what I mean? Their dad got back from World War II. He was just a severe alcoholic who didn't want to pay attention to his kids. The mom was kind of on like Klonopin or whatever pills they gave housewives back then, and they just grew up with like this privilege. That's the divide between the two groups, I feel like. Where it's like one, yeah, my grandpa grew up with like a fair amount of privilege going on. Like I said, one of the greatest economies in the history of the world. But he also like worked every day since he was a little kid, right? And I feel like that's the divide between different types of boomers, which is why I didn't want to include them on this list because it's just like it, it's just such a schism between the two types, you know? It's literally like it's one or the other. It's not a spectrum. It's not. It's black and white. There's no like gray area boomers that are like kind of nice but kind of not nice, kind of generous but kind of not generous, kind of grateful but kind of not grateful. It's one or the other. They're two very different types of people. And so that's why I didn't want to include the boomers on this list because it's literally it's a night and day. And I don't know. I feel like they have to do a study about this somewhere. And maybe I'm completely wrong. Maybe I stumbled onto some complete and utter bullshit, but I just feel like they just grew up like their parents did. They grew up in the same conditions, not the exact same conditions, but like pretty similar conditions as the greatest generation. But they just had a better economy than the greatest generation, so they were able to become more wealthy and more powerful and stuff like that. So yeah, that's why we're not dealing with the boomers today. It's just there's such a big divide. It's insane, man. Like I promise you, if you meet a nice boomer and you're like, did you grow up on a farm? The answer is always 100% gonna be yes. Just because they lived in the same conditions as the greatest generation, the same conditions that created a social group that was willing to sacrifice everything was applied to this group of boomers that grew up on farms. So, yeah, not going after the boomers today, but we're going after just about everyone else. I feel like we really covered the spectrum here, from right wing to left wing to just apolitical bullshit nonsense, right? Like sovereign citizens. I feel like that kind of like that's like it it bridges the gap. Sorry, I was trying to think of the words. Like sovereign citizens kind of bridges the gap between right wing and left wing people, where it's this complete retarded bullshit of just being like the rules don't apply to me. And that's a thing that exists on both sides of the political spectrum. So it's kind of beautiful if you think about it, you know what I mean? The retardation of sovereign citizens, it just really it's a bipartisan issue. And there's just something so beautiful about that. You know what I mean? People from both sides coming together to call these retards retards. I mean, it's amazing. These might be the people that, finally unite this country, to fight against a common enemy. So, yeah, but I feel like we got everybody. We got everybody on here. So let's try to find who is the number one most annoying. I think we'll start at number one. I feel like starting at number 10 might be a little bit too hard just because all of these people have something annoying about them. So starting at number 10 is going to be that would be a difficult task because it's just any one of them. Any one of them, I hate them all. So it's not like there's one that is like just stands out against the rest. But I do feel like we got a few number ones here that, at least to me, stand out against the rest. And sorry, those are the communists, the animal rights peoples, and then the Blue Lives Matter people. I think somewhere in there that's our top three. I think that no particular ranking yet, but I feel like communists, Blue Lives Matter people, and animal rights people are within the top three most annoying. And I'll go through and I'll explain why. So we'll start with animal rights people because they're third on the list. Animal rights people are like, I'm getting an environmental science degree right now, and I had this class called Environmental Issues and Policies, and we talked about all the different ways that you can approach environmentalism. And every class was like a different topic where we would talk about the shit. In no class, we talked about all sorts of shit. You know what I mean? We talked about like feminist environmentalism, one of the dumbest things I've ever heard of in my life. I think I talked about it on this podcast, but just an incredibly stupid thought to have. But like that didn't bother me as much as the animal rights people because it's like it's almost like the feminist environmentalism, whatever they called it. I don't fucking remember, but something about it was, I think it was called like environmental feminism. It just complete nonsense. And that's what made me not like get angry at it. I was just like, this is just such ridiculous bullshit that like I can't be angry at it, right? Once again, it goes back to like the whole kids don't really annoy me like that. Like a baby crying, it'll annoy me on some level, but like at the end of the day, I can just rationalize it and be like, yeah, it's just a baby crying. Like it's just what babies do. They don't really, a baby does not have like the rational thought process to be like, why am I crying right now? But an adult does. And that's kind of how I feel about like the environmental feminism, where I'm just like, this is just such complete nonsense that it would be a waste of time to be annoyed with it, right? And to be fair, being annoyed kind of as a whole is a waste of time unless it leads you to do something, which in my case, like I said, annoyance is the most driving factor in my life. So, yeah, but but the environmental feminism, it was just everything about it was so stupid that I was just like, yeah, hey, it's just like a stupid idea that people have. But the animal rights thing, the animal rights just it pisses me off to no end. For one, animals aren't people. The, they aren't people. Like people, like it goes back to like the whole assisted suicide thing. I'm vehemently against assisted suicide. I'm not saying, a person with terminal cancer shouldn't wish for death. I would wish for death in that scenario. But it's like if you're gonna kill yourself, you do it. You know what I mean? Don't put that on other people. Don't it's like a coward's way out. It's like if you're gonna kill yourself, go down to, whatever shitty neighborhood you have in your city, buy some fentanyl and just take yourself out of the game yourself, right? Don't put this on everyone else. You know what I mean? Don't try to make it seem like it's a legitimate medical procedure. It's not. It's not a legitimate medical procedure. It's killing yourself, right? Or it's having someone else kill you. That's what it is. People will try to, do whatever they can to like make it seem like it's some great moral act or whatever. It's not. It's not healthcare. It's not any of that shit. Right? And so I'm vehemently against that. But like one of the arguments people have is like, well, we put down dogs, so what makes people any different? And it's like the difference is they're people, right? The difference is they're people, right? Right? The main difference between an animal as a person and a person, the main difference between those two groups is that one is a people, right? One is a person. So that's the difference. One is an animal and one is a person. And I love animals, man. I've been a big animal guy for my entire life. I love my dogs. But like, my dog is a dog. I love the guy. He's a great guy, dude. Always happy to see me. He always wants pets and shit like that. Guy loves egg yolks. Love the guy. Big fan of him. Love the dude. But he's a dog. He's a dog. He doesn't have, empathy really. He doesn't he understands other people can be in pain, but like he just doesn't comprehend empathy the same way we do. He doesn't have any like hopes or dreams for his future. he's not he's not doing any of that shit. He's a dog, man. I love him, but he's a dog. Great guy. One of my favorite. But he's a dog. These animal rights people, and like they'll forego proper environmentalism in favor of the rights of animals, right? Like there's like wolves. Wolves have been reintroduced in large numbers across specifically like kind of like the mountain regions of the United States, right? Like Idaho, Montana, Wyoming, Colorado, that whole area. Wolves have been reintroduced there, right? And part of the reason they've been reintroduced there is so that a healthy environment can be created. A healthy ecosystem can be created if wolves are reintroduced to this area. You know, we won't have like chronic wasting disease and stuff like that because the wolves will control the deer population. So I mean, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to reintroduce wolves into an ecosystem, this big apex predator so that humans don't have to deal with all that shit. It's a good thing to do. But the animal rights people come in and they're against the killing of wolves. They're just like, no, you can't kill wolves. A wolf is basically a dog. And it's like, no, it's not, right? Because once again, we'll go back to this argument. The difference between a wolf and a dog is about 30,000 years of selective breeding, right? That's the difference between those two things. Look, I'm sure you could have a pet wolf, but you could also have a pet fucking tiger. Tigers are still gonna fucking eat people and shit like that. It doesn't just because someone has a pet tiger somewhere doesn't make tigers incapable of having negative impacts on humanity. All right? You need to kill tigers every now and again. You need to kill, lions every now and again. You need to kill elephants every now and again in order to keep the environment healthy. And these animal rights people, they pretend to care about the environment and nature and all that shit, but then they're like, "No, you can't kill wolves." And it's like, dude, the wolves they're destroying everything, right? Their population is out of control. They've been introduced into this environment where the deer aren't conditioned to, have this fear of wolves. The wolves have been gone for hundreds of years, so the deer don't really have fear of them. So the wolves are eating, way more than they should be eating. And then they're overreaching into human areas, with cattle and livestock and shit like that. And it's like these cattle are these people's lifeblood, right? These ranchers and stuff like that, like real ranchers, they do not exist without these cattle. Their lives are meaningless. They're not meaningless, but you know what I mean. Like their lives revolve around these animals. And so for you to be like, no, you can't kill that wolf it's crazy to me. And like the wolf is having negative impacts on the environment. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I hate the animal rights people. It's just like this cognitive dissonance that they have where it's like I care about nature and the environment and stuff like that, but they can't accept the most natural part of nature, the thing that exists in every environment, which is death. They can't accept the fact that these animals or, things getting killed, they can't accept the fact that that's going to happen. They just can't wrap their brains around it for some reason. They can't wrap their brains around the fact that death is an important part of any ecosystem. They can't fucking comprehend that. It's crazy. And that's why I hate them so much. It's just like the cognitive dissonance that they have is it's absurd. And it's just like, no, we don't want you to kill things. And it's like, hey, let me tell you about the history of the earth. The history of the earth, even before humans got here, the entire history of it was things killing other things. It's been going on for about 1 billion years now, right? It's the foundation of, ecosystems. So for you to be like, no, we can't kill these animals in order to make the ecosystem healthier, it's insane, and not just the ecosystem to help other people, right? It's those two ideas do not go together. You claim to care about, animals and nature and the environment, and yet you can't seem to accept the fact that some animals need to die in order for the environment to be healthy. You can't seem to accept this fact that exists across every ecosystem for the entire history that ecosystems have existed. You can't accept that fact. So that's why they annoy me so much. It's the cognitive dissonance. And I feel like that's what annoys me so much about a lot of these groups, and definitely the top three. The top three of all these groups, they're the foundation of their annoyance to me is just the cognitive dissonance that they have. And the fact that they're so vehement about their beliefs, right? The fact that they believe it so vehemently. I don't know if vehement in and of itself is a word. I've never heard that used in and of itself. I've always heard it used as vehemently. But just the fact that they hold on to these beliefs so strongly, and yet they're not able to see how the ideas they have directly conflict with each other is crazy. So that's the common theme, at least with the top three group. And next up, we have Blue Lives Matter people. Once again, massive cognitive dissonance, where a lot of the Blue Lives Matter people, they're like, yeah, we fucking support the police, hell yeah. But then they're like, I'm conservative. It's like, you can't have both. You can't defend police overreach and then also be like, I'm conservative. There's Go back to the whole animal rights thing. You can't be like, I animals shouldn't be killed and then also be like, I love the environment and nature. It's not how things work. Okay, that's not the basis on which this thing is built. You your idea conflicts with that basis. Same with the Blue Lives Matter people. Fucking yeah, the guy was reaching for a gun. Wouldn't you do the same thing if you were a cop? Yeah, I probably would, but that's why I'm not a fucking cop. Like that's another one of the things they have that annoys me so much. Would what would you do if you were in his situation? I wouldn't do shit because I wouldn't be in that situation, right? I would never be a cop. I don't have like the emotional control to be a police officer. So, right? Right? It's like asking me what I would do if I was the fucking president. It's like I'd never even try to be the president, let alone actually get there, right? What would you do if you were a cop? Fucking nothing, because I would never put myself in that situation. These people willingly signed up for this. They're they're not supposed to be like us, right? Cops aren't supposed to be like us. Politicians aren't supposed to be like us. You know, soldiers and stuff like that. They're not supposed to be like us. They're supposed to be better than us. At least at certain things. They're supposed to have, more control over their emotions. They're supposed to be able to, push themselves mentally farther, right? It's like it's just it's crazy. It's like I never these are supposed to be the elites, in terms of emotional regulation and mental discipline. They're supposed to be the best at that. It's like it's like being like Army Rangers, Army Rangers, like or Navy SEALs or whatever special group or special forces group you wanna put in that place. Those people should not be living like I live, right? They shouldn't be doing the things that I do. If you're a Navy SEAL, you shouldn't be taking naps in the middle of the day. You shouldn't be, sleeping and doing zins and smoking weed and drinking and shit like that because you're supposed to be better than that. You're supposed to be above such things. You don't need drugs to regulate yourself, right? You shouldn't have to do that because you're a Navy SEAL, right? They should be above doing such things, right? Like a cop. If I was in that situation, right, where I thought a guy was reaching for a gun, yeah, I'd shoot him. But I'm not a cop, right? Cops are supposed to be able to recognize situations, and they should also be willing to put their lives on the line in order to save the lives of innocent people, right? That's what being a cop is. It's like being a firefighter and being like, it's like if a firefighter stayed outside of a burning building and just watched it burn to the ground, and someone was like defending the firefighter by being like, wouldn't you be scared of going in the fire? Wouldn't you be scared of going in there? Yeah, I'd be scared, but that's why I'm not a fucking firefighter. It's because I'm terrified of fire and I don't want a fucking house to collapse in on me, right? It's the same thing with cops. Wouldn't you be scared in that situation? Yeah, that's why I'm not a fucking cop. That's why I have no interest in ever becoming a police officer, is because I know I would not be able to handle myself in those situations. You are a cop, you should be able to handle yourself. And that's why I hate the Blue Lives Matter people. What would you do in that situation? I don't know. I'm not a cop. I didn't go to fucking boot camp or whatever they go to. I didn't go to the academy and all that shit, right? And it's just, once again, Goes back to the cognitive dissonance as well of them being like, you know, Breonna Taylor, right? I think she was a nurse or something, whatever she was. She was just like an innocent lady who was like sleeping in her bed, and the cops did a no-knock warrant on her house and then shot her in the fucking head or some shit like that. And there were people being like, cops need to do their job, man. And it's like you can't have you can't believe that no-knock warrants should be legal in this country and then also say you're a conservative. Those two ideas directly conflict with each other, right? You you can't think that cops should be able to, infinitely detain and arrest people and then also be like, fucking government overreach is getting crazy. Cops are part of the government. They're part of the government. So for you to, sit here, sit there and be like, I hate government overreach, don't tread on me, and then also be like, the cops should be allowed to detain whoever they want. Those two ideas don't go together, right? The one of the big features of like a left wing big government group is the cops. The cops, coming into these neighborhoods, kicking down everyone's door, arresting everyone, doing all that bullshit. I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong, but you can't be like you can't cherry pick about what government overreach you think is appropriate, right? You can't say you're a conservative and then also approve of the cops invading people's privacy. No, those two things do not go together. So that's a big reason why I hate the Blue Lives Matter people. They're very annoying. They're very stupid. Nothing they say makes any sense, right? It's like the abortion people. I hate them for the same reason. It's like nothing you're saying is making any sense, right? My body, my choice. What country do you live in? Right? What country do you live in where you have ever had complete and utter autonomy over your own body? It's never been the case in this country. So it's a very stupid argument to have. It's a very stupid argument to be like, my body, my choice. It's a very stupid argument to be like, what would you do if you were a cop? It doesn't matter, right? Those things, you're saying this, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't apply to the situation in any way, shape, or form. You know? So I feel like, yeah, that's why I hate the Blue Lives Matter people. And now that I'm thinking about it, the abortion people should probably be on this list, but like I said, I don't want it to become too political. I really don't like them. It just because they're so annoying in their argument, I might put them on here. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but where would I put them, man? I might put them in people from the Northeast. Okay, people from the Northeast are getting replaced by abortion people, and I'll explain why real quick. I'm against abortion, right? I'll just say that, but I also just think every argument they have for abortion being legal is very stupid. That's why they're going there. So they'll not be in the top three, but now they're officially on the list. All right. And next up, we have communists. It's time to talk, boy. Let me take a deep breath. Let's Wim Hof this thing. All right, the communists. I think the communists are very annoying, first and foremost, because it's never worked. Right? It never has. Right? You ask like any communist, like for an example of when it's worked, and they'll start talking about, like hunter-gatherer societies and shit like that. And it's like they weren't communist. They didn't have like a true system of government. They didn't have like money. The labor, it's like the labor was split up evenly in hunter-gatherer societies. And it's like, yeah, that's because there was two jobs. The two jobs were killing animals or picking fruit. That's why labor was split up evenly in hunter-gatherer societies. It's not a system that's ever worked anytime ever. And then and they'll also bring up times once again where it wasn't communism at all. It wasn't, right? Like Sweden. They'll be like Sweden's heaven on earth. Not anymore, right? Because they have the highest rape rate in Europe, so it's not really the paradise on earth that it once was, but it was also never communist, right? Because communism, the people own the means of production, right? And I think Sweden, I can't remember if it was Sweden or Norway, but they'll bring up those two kind of in tandem with each other. They kind of treat them as one entity, but one of them has like massive reserves of oil, and I think those oil reserves were nationalized. And that's like the one aspect of their manufacturing production, whatever it was, that was nationalized. So it's like it wasn't communist. You're bringing up things that that never were communist. And then there's the ones who will ignore that. They'll ignore Norway and Sweden and Denmark, all those fucking Scandinavian countries, the UK, whatever. They'll ignore those places and then they'll start talking about, the USSR and China and stuff like that. And they'll be like, it was so great. It was so great to live in communist Russia. And it's like, no, it wasn't. Right? They're a very irrational group of people, but I do find them to be quite entertaining. Right? Like the animal rights people, they annoy me a lot. Same with the Blue Lives Matter people. So communists are probably going to be number three. But they're so dumb that they're annoying. Or not annoying. They're so dumb that they're funny. Right? Or they're like, Mao Zedong is the reincarnation of Jesus or the second incarnation of Jesus. Right? It's like the guy that killed 60 million people. It's there's just something so funny about them. They're just funny, goofy people. Right? Where they're just the things they say are so stupid that it's just like eh. Like it's often very annoying, just how pressing they are about it. The fact that they just believe in it so strongly. That's very annoying. And that's the main reason why they're in the top three. But there's also just something just so funny about him. Just so funny about, some fucking bitch or, dude or bitch or dick. Look, I'm trying to be fucking inclusive here when I'm talking shit about people. Dudes don't really have like a bitch that we can use for them. But I guess bitch kind of is multi-gender. In my opinion, it is. I know a lot of people think bitch, like when you say it's like derogatory towards women. I just think as a whole, I'm bitch. I just kind of I just kind of use it. So, and I got in trouble in that for eighth grade, which I'll talk about that one day. That was one of the most annoying events of my life when I got in trouble for saying bitch. But whatever. I think bitch is a bi-gender word. I use it for both people. So I want to get that out there when I say bitch. I'm not just talking about the ladies here. There's plenty of annoying dudes, if not more annoying dudes than ladies when it comes to there's definitely more annoying male communists than there is annoying female communists. So, just some bitch, right? Imagine a bitch, whatever it is in your head. For me, the image of a bitch really it does span across both genders. It's almost it doesn't apply to either. Where it's just like some kind of blobbish looking person, right? Some skinny fat person who, you know, doesn't really do much, right? Like a jellyfish almost. That's what I imagine when I say the word bitch is like is kind of like a jellyfish, just this thing that floats around. It doesn't confront anything, and it's just whatever gets caught in its tentacles, that's what it eats. Like that's what I imagine when I say bitch. But just like these complete bitches being like Stalin. Stalin was the man. And it's like, all right, let's say Stalin ruled hard as fuck. You would not have survived under his regime, right? Like the things it took for the USSR to become such a powerful country are they don't align with like what a lot of communists like the way they live their lives, right? Like the tenets that created the Soviet Union, this big powerful fucking boogeyman, the things that created that it- they don't the modern proponents of communism don't engage in those things. They don't do those things. They don't have those qualities, those values about themselves. You know what I mean? They don't have those virtues. Where it's like the Soviet Union, not a big fan of communism, but the people that worked under this communist, government and economy, those people work their fucking asses off. Those, like, there's Magnitogorsk, for example. Stalin literally had all the factories in his Soviet Union moved east of the Ural Mountains, which are in Russia. And he had these people move these factories, piece by piece over these mountains, literally, so that they couldn't be bombed by the Germans. And the people that rebuilt the factories on the east side of the Ural Mountains, they were working in frozen conditions, 16 hours a day for barely any money, just working their asses off. And just to be like a modern proponent of communism that like really any job in America, most jobs in America really don't compare to that, right? Like even modern construction workers and welders and just blue collar people don't they don't have that work ethic. They don't have like the Soviet work ethic, right? And especially not the communists. The communists especially don't have that work ethic where they're just like, yeah, everything around me is frozen. I can't feel any part of my body because it's so cold outside, but I'm going to build this factory because it needs to be done. Right? And it's like the main reason why they've never had there's a reason why it's never been successful in this country is because they don't have any work ethic. And so that's why communists are we'll put them at number three for right now. Yeah, just a very, once again, cognitive dissonance. There's a whole lot of that in there, right? Cognitive dissonance about ideas that you believe so strongly in, but they're also just funny. Like, right? They're so stupid that they're funny, and they're just, I can't hate on them like that. And then we'll put animal rights people at number one. I don't know. Maybe it's just my personal bias coming in as an environmental science person, but they'll go up there. And then we'll put Blue Lives Matter people at number two. Hey, man, this is, like I said, it's pretty equal. Everyone's getting the get here. The top three, I would say animal rights people, that's not really a right wing or a left wing thing. Maybe you could construe it as a little bit left wing, but I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of like Republicans or whatever that are like, I don't know, just freak the fuck out about animals. I have no fucking idea. But Blue Lives Matter people, that's definitely a right wing thing. And then communists are definitely a left wing thing. So everyone's getting the get when it comes to this. All right. Everyone's getting it. Everyone's fucking annoying. All right. And now we have who goes up next? Who is next on the list? This is a tough one. Sovereign citizens, I feel like I can pretty easily say they're definitely not top five. They might be number 10 on the list. They're more so stupid than they are annoying. So sovereign citizens, they're not in there. Non-denominational Christians, I'll consider that for top five. Abortion people, yeah. Abortion people are going at number four now that I think about it. And it's just at the end of the day, it's just how stupid their arguments are just about everything, right? And also, once again, cognitive dissonance where they're like, my body, my choice. But then it's also like everyone who is like a big fan of abortion also thought that if you didn't get the COVID vaccine, you should be fucking thrown in the pit, dude. Right? And like I said, I'm not gonna go after their ideology. I'll go after their arguments, right? My body, my choice kind of already went after that one. And then no uterus, no opinion. An incredibly stupid argument. One of the dumbest things I've ever heard in my life before. One of the stupidest things I've ever heard. That's like me being like, do you think rape should be illegal? And then someone goes, obviously no. And then I go, no penis, no opinion. Right? Right? Like that's like the level of argument that they're on, where it's like, if you're not part of this group, you shouldn't be able to decide about what's going on here. It's like, no, it's not how ethics work, right? That's not how morality works, right? It's like if Hitler was like, if you're not Aryan, you should not have an opinion about the Aryan race and how we should take over the world. It's a dumbass fucking argument, right? If you're not Aryan, you shouldn't be, you know, you're like when America like invaded Germany and they were like, we got to get rid of these concentration camps, right? It's like the people who were deciding that weren't Jewish. They were like fucking, Irish or English or whatever. So it's like, uh, but at the end of the day, killing innocent people is wrong. So yes, I should have an opinion, right? Ethics doesn't stop and start when it comes to certain groups, right? Or the ability to have an ethical opinion about a situation, it doesn't stop applying just because you're not part of the group that experiences that situation, right? That was kind of nonsense that I just said. It was kind of just a jumble of words, but you know what I mean. It's it's like, I don't know, illegal immigrants, right? Let's just take that as an example. That's like being like, if you're not an illegal immigrant, you shouldn't decide what happens to them. If you're not a murderer, you shouldn't decide what happens to murderers. It's like, no, that's not how it's not how ethics works. That's not how morality works. It doesn't just because I'm not in the exact same situation as you doesn't make my opinion on the morality of the situation any better or worse. It's like, It's like a being like psychopaths shouldn't be allowed to make decisions about serial killers because they've never lived in their bodies. Or people who aren't psychopaths should not be able to make decisions about what other psychopaths do because they've never been in that situation. It's like that doesn't make any sense. It's a very stupid argument. And that's like the main reason why I hate them so much. Like I said, I disagree with it morally pretty much. But it's just like the arguments, man. Like some of the arguments that I hear out of them are so stupid that I'm like, and I'm like, I kind of want to help you, man. Your argument that you're trying to make right now is so stupid that I kind of want to tell you what the right one is to make, right? Like another one that they go with is, and this is one that I've made up fun of many, many times before, but is the whole, it's it's better to like not exist than exist in a shitty situation, right? It's a very it's a stupid argument, right? It doesn't and it's like what that only applies to people that haven't been born yet. It's just it doesn't make any sense because then I could apply that argument to lots of groups of people, right? Like if I went into a foster home and just one by one executed the kids in there, and I was like, but you guys don't know, it's better to not exist than to be in foster care. They'd be like, I don't give a shit. You're still getting the fucking electric chair, right? Like it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense to be like, it's better to not exist. And it's like, there's also ways that you can prevent being pregnant. That's like another thing that annoys me so much about them is that they act like it's like you just wake up one morning and you're like, fuck, I'm having a baby. Right? Like there's ways to prevent that. There's ways to prevent yourself from having a baby in the first place. And they just completely ignore that aspect of it because they're like, well, what about rape? And it's like, what about it, man? What what about it? You know? Like, yeah, happens sometimes. I don't know what you want me to say. I'm like, yeah, no, we get to kill someone. If we should kill anyone, it should be the person who did the rape. Right? Where they're like, no, we have to kill the kid. We have to we have to kill the kid who is the product of the rape, not the rapist. And it's also like I don't know. It's like being like we should get rid of all roads because what if one day a sinkhole opens up on the road and someone falls into the sinkhole and dies? It's like we still need roads, dude. Right? We still need roads. It's just their arguments are very, very funny. Very funny arguments. It's just so stupid. And I feel like I've gotten better at finding annoying things stupid, but the abortion people, they're still one of the groups that just gets to me like that, where they just have like these retarded arguments that they just like, they scream. They scream the arguments that they have, where they're like, my body, my choice. And they don't see the nonsense that's in there. They don't see the fact that it just doesn't make any sense, right? Doesn't apply to this situation at all. So, yeah, that's why abortion people are number four. And once again, it doesn't really have to do too much with the actual belief that in abortion. It just has to do with the cognitive dissonance and just like the lack of thought that they put into defending their position, despite the fact that they defend their position with just such vigor. They just defend it so hard, but then they don't put any thought into how they're defending it. So, yeah, they're number four. And who do we have left? Non denominational Christians, sovereign citizens, Zionists, chefs, performative men, and stoners. This is a tough one. I think we'll go Zionists next. But once again, the main thing for me is like the retardation of the arguments that they use, right? Where they're like, the Bible says we can have it. The Bible says we can have it. And then like the Holocaust, they'll just bring up the Holocaust being like, oh, you don't think Israel should, be allowed to, you don't think Israel should have been founded and they shouldn't be allowed to expand now? You ever heard of the Holocaust before? And it's like, yeah, I have. I've also heard of 100 other genocides, and no one's using that to defend their current actions. Right? No one's using, like, I was thinking about this recently. I'm Volga German. The Volga Germans are a group of German people, or like ethnically, I am. You know, in every other sense, I'm an American, but ethnically, I'm a Volga German. And the Volga Germans were a group of German people who were invited to live in Russia by Catherine the Great. And she invited them in there And then about, I think that happened in the 1770s maybe. So about 140, 150 years later, the the Soviet Union took over, and even a little bit before that, but the Soviet Union is the one that really did the thing that I want to talk about. So the Soviet Union took over Russia, and by that time, the Volga Germans had been oppressed for a while, so a lot of them started fleeing the country, but there was still a fair amount in there. There was still a fair amount of Volga Germans within the USSR. And those that remained, about 1 million of them were killed, due to forced labor, mass killings, stuff like that. In the USSR, the Bolsheviks who took over the country, those people were Jewish, right? So it's like the Jews genocided the Germans 30 years, right? Like, or 20 years before Hitler even had the thought of doing that, right? And so you get to bring up yours, but I don't get to bring up mine, right? Like, I don't know. There's just something annoying about that. And it's also like, I have more of a claim to the Volga region of Germany than Jews have to Israel, right? Like everyone, when you attack, when you hate Jews, right? When you're an anti-Jewish bigot, people will call you anti-Semitic. But Semitism refers to a group of an ethnic slash culture slash language group that's from the Middle East. And the thing about modern Jews and modern Jews that live in Israel is they're not from the Middle East, man. They're not. They're from Europe, right? Sorry, they're from Europe, right? They've been there for about 3,000 fucking years. Or not 3,000, 2,000. But they've been there for about 2,000. They're European people. And then they come in and they claim, that they're from the Middle, or not the Middle East, they're from the Near East. But most people, they don't really know about the delineation between there. And honestly, the Middle East and the Near East have kind of become one due to Arab expansion and, the Ottoman Empire and shit like that. But whatever. It's just they're a very annoying group of people. It's like if I got arrested for something and I was like, "Have you never heard of the Volga genocide in the USSR? You never heard of that before? Officer, you can't give me a DUI. My people, 1 million of them were killed 100 years ago. You can't give me a DUI right now." Right? It's like it's like and they bring it up. They bring it up with no matter what you talk about in there. It's not even the people that don't think that Israel should exist as a state. Like me, I don't really give a shit, but I'm like, hey, they shouldn't be genociding those people, right? Like someone will make that argument. Someone will be like, you ever heard of the Holocaust before? Just like what? Those two things have nothing to do with each other. And also like the claim that they have to the land is complete nonsense. So yeah, not a big fan of the Zionists. And so they're number 5. Just like I said, I don't want to go after people's beliefs too much, but like this belief is it's such nonsense, man. It's like me pulling up in Russia and being like, yo, Putin, give me that land. Right? Like as much as people hate Putin, they would defend him killing me because what I did was insane. It's insane to go in there, to go into Russia, to the area where the Volga Republic or whatever it was called, where that area was, and then just be like, this is my house now. It's insane to do that. And if I was killed by Putin for doing that, no one would be angry at him. Everyone would just be like, yeah, man, that guy was fucking insane. But like when the Zionists do it, it's like, no, they have a right to that land. They need it. It's like, it's just it's a very stupid belief system that every argument for is just as stupid. It's just as complete nonsense. So Zionists are number 5. And who do we have left? Performative men. I'll put them at number 6. And what I mean when I say performative men, both types, is I kind of said it before, but I'll say it now and maybe expand on it a little more. And in the way a lot of people define it, performative men are like dudes who, read feminist poetry to try to get pussy, right? But to me, that's just one type. There's two main types in my opinion. There's like those guys, and then there's the guys that like I love, Barstool and shit like that. The people that are like, I just love the Trend Twins and drinking beer because I'm just a guy's guy, like almost like the Gillis type performance for performative men. And I don't think Gillis is in and of himself a performative man, but I think from his popularity has sprung this genre of performative men that are like, fucking guys aren't allowed to drink beer anymore and fucking watch dinosaurs, man. I fucking love dinosaurs and beer. I'm just like a regular old dude. and then they also do that to get pussy. And some of them do it for even worse reasons. Some dudes do that just to be liked by other dudes, right? Some dudes are just like, yeah, fucking, drink beer and play blackjack and smoke cigarettes and shit like that. And they do that just to get attention from other dudes. And I'm sure there's vast swaths of men that enjoy, you know, cracking open a Miller Lite and opening up, the FanDuel app and putting a parlay on the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure there's a fair amount of men that enjoy doing that. But there's also a fair amount of men that do that to get approval from other people, right? And so that's the other type that I don't think people acknowledge as much, and it annoys me just as much as the other type does, where it's like, in the other type, it's almost like I can almost see through it a little bit more, right? It's kind of like what Malcolm X said about white liberals and white conservatives. Malcolm X thought all white people were inherently racist, right? That's what you have to understand what he's saying here. But he was like, a white conservative is a lot less dangerous than a white liberal because a white liberal will pretend to care about you, but a white conservative will just say, fuck you, I hate black people, right? That's what Malcolm X said. And I think this applies to performative men, where it's like, the ones that, listen to Claro and, have flower tattoos and all that bullshit, it, that's way easier to see through. It's a lot less deceptive, right? You can just very easily identify that person and just be like, yeah, no, that's a guy playing pretend to get pussy, right? It's a very easy thing to identify. But the dudes that are like, yeah, I fucking love drinking beer and smoking cigarette, it's more facetious. Like that act that they put on is far more facetious than the ones that are like, I just love Lana Del Rey and poetry, right? Where like we'll just call them liberal and conservative, right? Just like Malcolm X did. The liberal progressive man is like, it's easier for people to know that they're just faking it for attention because it's not typical, right? It's not typical of them or of men to, love feminist poetry, to love Emily Dickinson or whatever, right? I think that's her name. Emily Dickinson? What the fuck is her name? I can't remember her name. But that's not like a masculine thing to do. Yeah, Emily Dickinson's her name. It's not a masculine thing to, flip through a collected work of Emily Dickinson poems. But it is a masculine thing to, drink beer and smoke cigarettes. But the way these people do it, you can tell they don't have the fucking heart in them, right? Because dudes that truly do that shit for the love of the game, they're not out here posting it on social media and shit like that. They're just out there doing it for fun, man. And so I think the conservative ones, there's just something more deceptive about that. It's just malicious. It's like you're trying to pretend to be a guy's guy, right? Whereas the other ones, yeah, they're trying to pretend to be someone else, but it's a lot easier to see through, in my personal opinion. So, yeah, not a big fan of either of them. I find them both to be equally annoying, but one of them is less deceptive than the other one. And then who we have left is non-denominational Christians, sovereign citizens, chefs, and stoners. Oh, I'll go non-denominational Christians at 7, just because, they have a lot of the problems that some of the other groups have, but I do feel like they're less annoying than the other groups are. Like the non-denominational Christians, they do have that problem of cognitive dissonance where they're like, I'm a Christian and I believe in the Bible, but then they don't actually hold any of the moral tenets of the Bible, right? It'll be like, I'm a non-denominational Christian and, I believe that we should have women priests. And it's like, you got to pick one or the other, right? You can't be a Christian and then also be like, we should be allowed, or female priests should be allowed. It's like, no, man. Male priests are that's a law in Christianity, right? That's truth about Christianity, is that the priests involved in it are men. It just is what it is, right? And then they just have all these other beliefs that just directly conflict with the Bible. And then at the end of it all, they have the gall to act like morally superior. They have the gall to be like, I'm a Christian, and it's like, no, you're not, right? That they just they want to be morally superior, but they don't want to do any of the things that make them morally superior. Or they want to like get into heaven, but they don't want to follow the Bible. It's like, man, you got to do what Jesus said to get into heaven. Or some groups don't believe that. Some people just think you need to accept him into your heart. But if you just if you want to call yourself a Christian, do Christian things, right? Don't be showing up to church and having the fucking pastor come down, while Creed plays in the background. It's not what Jesus would have wanted. I don't know if you guys are very familiar with the Bible, but Jesus wasn't a big fan of shit like that, right? That he didn't say to do shit like that. All right. When Peter started the Catholic Church, he wasn't like, and one day we'll have trans priests. It doesn't, and I guess that's not non-denominational Christians, but that was the best, category that I could come up with for it. It's just like Christians who don't believe in Christianity. And I don't know, maybe this category would be better defined as religious people who don't actually believe in that religion, right? Because the Muslims that are like that, they annoy me a lot too. Where it's like, I'm a Muslim, but I don't think women should have to cover their hair, blah blah, blah. And it's like, then you're not a fucking Muslim, right? It's just like it's very annoying for you to adopt this religion and kind of basically take this moral high ground by adopting this religion and then also just not follow the religion. There's something very annoying about that. So maybe I'll redefine this category as people who pretend to be religious, of just being like, I'm a Christian. Yeah, I'm a Christian. No, you're not. You're not a fucking Christian, all right? You you're not. I'm a Christian, but yeah, I don't really believe in like baptism. And it's like, okay, then you're not that. And like, I don't know what to tell you. So yeah, I'll redefine that group as religious people who aren't actually religious, people who want to be religious but don't have the spirit in them to be religious. You know, I think that's the best way to define that group. And now I can go after the Muslims a little bit because I learned about this recently about Muslims specifically when it comes to Ramadan. I learned recently that a lot of them think that other people should not eat in front of them during Ramadan. I learned that they think that. And that applies to this situation, and I'll tell you why. The entire point of Ramadan is about self-sacrifice and about rejecting the temptations and evils of a secular life or a non-Muslim life, I'll say, right? It's about that shit. It's about like Ramadan is about self-discipline and about seeing the evil around you in the world and then not engaging with it. That's what religion about is about kind of as a whole. But specifically Ramadan is about, resisting the urge to eat during the day. It's about shit like that. And so for you to be like, you shouldn't eat in front of me during Ramadan, it's like, no, I should eat in front of you. And a lot of people should, because that's what the point of Ramadan is. The point of Ramadan is seeing non-Muslims do things that Allah doesn't like and watching them do that and having the strength to resist that temptation and instead staying on your religious path. And that's just a very annoying thing that I figured out recently that I think applies to this group. It's like, if you don't think other people should eat in front of you during Ramadan, then I don't think you're really that dedicated to Ramadan. Because if you were that dedicated, you wouldn't give a shit. You'd be like, oh, that person's eating in front of me. Well, have fun in, I don't know the Muslim name for hell. I know heaven is Jannah. I don't know the Muslim name for hell though. You should see that. You should see a person eating during Ramadan or not praying during Ramadan and be like, have fun in Muslim hell, dude. No fucking virgins for you or whatever. So, yeah, I think that applies to this category as well of just of religious, non-religious people. Okay. Next, we have chefs, stoners, and sovereign citizens. I think I can just outright put sovereign citizens at number 10 because, like I said before, they fall into that category of like their children. It's just what they have to say and how they came to that conclusion is so illogical and so stupid that I think they can go in number 10 and just kind of chill there and just be and we can just laugh at them, right? Like every time I see one of those videos, I know a lot of people will get mad when they see them. I just laugh. I'm just like, you seriously thought you were going to be allowed to drive without a driver's license? Like you really in your heart of hearts believed that a cop would pull you over, you wouldn't have a driver's license, and then you could be like, I'm a sovereign citizen. You really thought that that was going to work? Right there. There's something annoying about it. There's something annoying about someone who's very stupid believing that they're not that stupid. That's one of the things that's always bothered me in life as a stupid person, is people who is other stupid people who just can't accept that fact and can't accept the fact that, yeah, shit's gonna be a little harder for you, man. It's gonna be a little tougher for you to get an A in this class. Is what it is, man. A lot of us are in that fucking boat. So, but anyway, sovereign citizens, they're just so dumb and just so funny, goofy, silly guys that I think they'll go. And also, it's like, it's not damaging, right? Like, being a sovereign citizen, it just really, it could be damaging, but it's not on the level of like communism, right? Communism has killed millions, at least 100 million people in the last century alone. So that at least has the capability to be damaging, even if the people who are, perpetrating it, or the people who are like big fans of it, even if those people don't actually, won't ever actually be able to enact it in any meaningful way, it still has that potential to be very, very dangerous. And so that's kind of why they're in number three. But sovereign citizens, it's just like the worst that's going to happen is one hits your car and then you don't get any insurance money. But you probably will in a way, because that person will go to jail for not having insurance, and then they'll force that person to pay you restitution. You'll probably never see that money because most sovereign citizens, I'd imagine, don't have jobs, but still, I just don't think they're damaging enough. And I think chefs will go at number eight, and then stoners will go at number nine. The reason chefs go at number eight is because they're just such a self-righteous group of people, despite cooking, right? That's what chefs do. Chefs are like, they all think that they're philosophers or whatever, like Anthony Bourdain. They all look up to Anthony Bourdain. No offense to Anthony Bourdain, but I'll tell you what Anthony Bourdain was. He was a heroin addict who killed himself because his wife was a pedophile. That's what Anthony Bourdain was at the end of the day. I'm not saying he never said anything smart ever, but like, that, I don't know. It's like, that's your hero. Like, that's the guy that you think is the shit. And I've seen his shows before, and his shows are just like, everyone needs to come together and love each other, man. And we need to end inequality. And it's like, oh, you think inequality should cease to exist, and you think everyone should be nicer to each other? What a revolutionary idea, Anthony Bourdain. How about you get back in that kitchen and whip me up some fucking lasagna? They're and they all think they have like the most badass job on earth. And it's like, dude, I cook. Everyone cooks. It's like part of being a human being. They think because they dip some fucking frozen eyes or fries into some oil that they're a marine or whatever. They're like, oh, we're fucking hardos. And also, it brought about chefs thinking that they're cool, brought about the show The Bear. And I really don't like that show because it just does have that ethos about it where it's like, we're chefs, dude. We fucking work hard and we make food. Yeah, and we're just everymen, but we're also like genius philosophers. We're and it's just, they're a very annoying, self-righteous group of people who I don't enjoy in any way, shape, or form. All right. And they have like those fucking annoying ass tattoos. They literally act like they're in the special forces, and it's like, dude, you fry eggs for a living. How about we pipe the fuck down, man? You, they're just a very annoying group of people. So we've been doing this for an hour and 40 minutes. So I would put myself in the most annoying, group of people, but I don't try to push myself on other people too much. I do a little bit here and there, but not too much, so. But I'll go through the list real quick. Goddamn, my brain is completely dead. That's my bad. Shouldn't have recorded this podcast, but is what it is. So, number one, we have animal rights people. Number two, we have Blue Lives Matter people. Number three, we have communists. Number four, we have, pro-abortion people. Number five, we have Zionists. Number six, we have performative men, both types. Remember, important point there. Number seven, we have religious, non-religious people. Eight, we have chefs. Nine, we have stoners. And 10, we have sovereign citizens. I guess I didn't talk about the stoners that much, but they kind of have the same feeling as the chefs, but they're just a little more just stupid, right? Like the sovereign citizens are, where it's like stoners are like hardos about weed, right? Like they think that they have that same mentality of the chefs where they're like, no one understands us, man. We smoke weed and no one really gets it. They have that. But because they smoke weed, they're just a little more docile about it. Where like these chefs are like, I'll fucking beat your ass, bro. And it's like, You're gonna beat my ass with a spatula or some shit, you know what I mean? You're gonna be an Italian grandma and spank me on the ass with a wooden spoon. Fuck off. So yeah, that's our official ranking. My brain is just completely dead, so it's my bad for recording this one, but fuck it. We ball. Hey man, we ball. So that's all I've got for this episode, guys. I hope you have a good day slash week slash year slash life. I got school coming up. School's about to start soon, so we're going to be going back down to probably 2 episodes a week, and those 2 episodes are going to be recorded back to back. I'll put them out on different days or the same day. I only have one listener, so tell me what you want. Tell me what you want me to do. But yeah, that's all I've got for this episode, guys. Good day, week, year, life. Peace.